Oh hey new player, what's that? You want to try to get into Dota? Oh, excellent choice. Don't you worry, I got you covered, my guy. I just needed to read a few things. Don't worry, it's not a lot. Here's the link. Enjoy.
Wow, that's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them.
I won't beat around the bush. Dota 2 is a hard game to get into. In other news, water is wet. I need to start out this video with a disclaimer. This is not a guide. I'm not here to hold your hand through the wonderful experience of Dota 2. Disaster. Absolute disaster. Rather, this video is just gonna be me rambling just about all the stuff that we players have to keep track of at any given moment of any given game. From the heroes, the spells, the mechanics, and the interactions between all of those things. The map, the micro strategy, the macro strategy, the hidden mechanics, the features that are underexplained, janky mechanics that are holdovers from Warcraft 3. The fact that we Dota players have become acclimatized to all of this is truly amazing. Whereas everybody else, like new players or just people tuning in to watch others play Dota, they're completely lost. There's a reason why even non-gamers can understand esports like Counter-Strike or even Rocket League, but then plop them down in the middle of a Dota 2 team fight and watch as their eyes glaze over. I'm sure that there's other games out there that probably deal with more numbers than Dota. I'm looking at you, EVE Online. But as far as I'm concerned, being the extremely unbiased Dota 2 fanboy that I am, of course, Dota 2 is the most complex competitive esports that I can really think of. Of all the games that can call themselves esports titans, I truly do not think any other game can come even close to the amount of sheer complexity that Dota demands its players. I guess you could say that Dota 2 is mechanically the densest esports that has ever existed, and I want to talk about why that's the case. So, join me Internet Wanderer as I talk about what makes Dota such a overwhelming experience. And while I did say that this video isn't necessarily a guide, I'm hoping that by the end I could have at least taught you a thing or two about this game. And I also gotta say, damn man, you looking good. You've been hitting the gym? You're looking shredded as hell. Well, how could you not be? After all, you're watching the Argonax channel. And only Chads watch this channel. Allegedly. And and if you want to stay alpha, do the YouTube things, because only real Sigma alphas do that. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that hype button, and let's get into this video. Let's start things off with the most surface level observation. There are 126 heroes in Dota 2, and all of these heroes have a minimum of 4 spells, 1 innate and 2 facets. But don't get it twisted, a lot of heroes have more than just these. Many, many more. On top of that, many of these heroes have summoned companions, and these summons, as well as jungle creeps and map bosses like Tormentor and Roshan, these guys have their own unique abilities as well. If you really want to take it a step further, even basic units like creeps and towers have, I wouldn't call them unique spells, but let's just say they have unique mechanics to them. In fact, dedicated spreadsheet aficionado Moshi was able to make this wonderful table right here that showcased how many abilities every single unit in Dota has, from the heroes to the creeps to everything. Thank you again, Moshi, for counting them for me. You're awesome. From their tallying, it comes up to the grand old number of 708 spells. And don't you worry, all of them have some flavor of bullshit. But let's forget spells and abilities for a second, because there's another thing that also makes Dota nigh incomprehensible. And for that, let's take a look at your HUD for a second. Yeah, you see that on the right side of your screen? Yeah, that's where your items go. And for that, you have 6 inventory slots, 3 backpack slots, a teleport slot, and a neutral item slot. That means you have 8 more buttons to click on top of the 4 default ones for your hero. That is a lot of buttons to click, and you're not even playing Invoker.
But my true name of power is Carl.
There are roughly, I didn't bother to count because, dear God, have you seen how many items there are in this game? There are roughly 250 items in this game. And many of these powerful items is the real reason why heroes are as powerful as they are. Hell, they alluded this as early as the Dota 2 trailer back in 2011.
What does a hero truly need? Much depends upon the hero. Would you be swift? Then for you, I have speed beyond measure.
So you got hundreds of heroes, hundreds of units, and hundreds of items. That's already a lot of stuff to keep track of right off the bat. For all of these items and spells, you better know more or less everything about them. Their numbers, their damage, its damage type, its range, its cooldown, its mana cost, its duration, its little quirks and unique mechanics, etc, etc, etc. This is the reason that MOBAs, but more specifically Dota, is a game for people who really like numbers and words. And if neither of those things appeal to you, I'm sure that there's other games that might fit your preferences. Okay, correction. My editor has informed me that apparently numbers do in fact matter in fighting games. Not that I would care, cause after all, you're only minus frames if you're a bitch. That is a complete lie. I don't have an editor. If you could say that Dota has a sexual preference, let's say it's a game for wiki-sexuals, because people who peruse this game's wiki and learn every little thing about it will have a bigger advantage than those who don't. I'm not saying you have to read the wiki or memorize every spell in order to be competent at this game, but it certainly does help. And I would say if you really wanted to be good at this game, knowing all of this is the bare minimum. And that's not all, just knowing what they do isn't enough. Because Dota has a lot of philosophies when it comes to its game design. The most famous one is that Dota follows the rule of if everything is OP, then nothing is OP. But there's another philosophy that Dota subscribes to that people don't really talk about that often. Dota is also a game of hard counters. No matter how powerful your character is or your items are, if there are certain heroes or items on the enemy team, they can completely invalidate you. Enigma has one of the most powerful teamfight spells in Black Hole. Doesn't matter, Silencer pressed one button and suddenly you don't exist anymore. Huskar is a powerful berserker character who gets more powerful the lower his health is. All of a sudden, Ancient Apparition hits him with his ult and then suddenly he's just dead. Blade Mail is an extraordinarily powerful item that reflects all of the damage that you take back to your opponents. But what happens if your opponent has a Satanic? Suddenly, they're lifestealing more than you can reflect. There are so many instances of this where it doesn't matter how bullshit you are. Unfortunately, your bullshit is rock-coded. My bullshit is paper-coded. Paper covers rock, get owned, noob. I'll give another example. Dazzle is a powerful support, and his basic ability, Shallow Grave, will stop an ally from dying no matter how much damage they take as long as it is active. But then, Axe's Culling Blade goes right through it, who slams his axe so hard on their head that they become a number. Shout out to Piran Flax for that old joke.
He hits you so hard, you turn into a fucking number. It has some fairly profound implications for what those things actually are. He can turn you into a number with an axe.
That's right. Exceptions, people. Exceptions. Everything in Dota has exceptions. Some spells are inherently built as exceptions to the rules, the aforementioned Axe Dunk, but then you also have another instance like, for example, if Rubik steals Chronosphere from Faceless Void, even if they are on opposite teams, Faceless Void can still move in the stolen Chronosphere. However, the poster child when it comes to selective exceptions in this game has to go to the Black King Bar and its ability to make you quote-unquote magic immune. Black King Bar, otherwise known as BKB, is probably the one item that Dota is completely balanced around. Naturally, it's very powerful. When activated, it makes you spell immune for a set duration, which gets lower every time you use it. And when you do activate it, holy shit, suddenly all spells and their effects stop working on you, is what I would say. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You see, when BKB is active, it doesn't actually make you immune to spells. Instead, it just gives you a ton of magic resistance. You still take spell damage, just a lot less of it. However, its biggest selling point is the fact that you are immune to most crowd control abilities and debuff effects. Stuns won't stun you, silences won't silence you, and your mother won't return my calls. What's the deal? But Ice Frog wanted to play a little prank on us. You see, when you hold the Alt key in Dota, it brings a drop-down menu giving you more information about a spell or item, and under BKB's tooltip, it has this little description. Rather unassuming, you might think. Oh, but believe me, this one sentence is what this entire game is balanced around. Right now, I am showing you on screen all of the spells in Dota 2 that completely ignore BKB. You see, as a general rule of thumb, people like to say that basic abilities will not pierce it, whereas ultimates will. Except I have to say, whoever came up with that rule was probably a Herald player, because there are so many ultimates in this game that don't pierce it, and so many basic abilities that do. There is no rhyme or reason to it. So all I have to say is, listen man, I know reading and memorizing things is a scary proposition for many of you guys, but if there ever was going to be one thing that you had to read and learn in this game, please look up and try to commit to memory what spells do and do not ignore spell immunity. Alternatively, whenever you're in-game, just look up the spells on the enemy heroes and look at this tab right here. This will tell you all you need to know about their spells in relation to BKB. So, to all of the Dota newbies who I know watch my videos from time to time, thank you, by the way, for doing so. I have 2 tips in regards to Black King Bar. Number 1, it helps you against spells, but physical damage will still hurt. Try to remember that the next time you rush into the enemy team, and then suddenly you see a Phantom Assassin coming at you with a crit with your name on it.
He hits you so hard, you turn into a fucking number. Just think about that.
And the other tip that I want to give to all the people who are relatively new to Dota is, please, for the love of God, buy Black King Bars. Yes, I know it doesn't give the best stats. Yes, I know it doesn't give the best damage. You would rather buy a crit item or a Dagon or a Divine Rapier, one of those more flashy items. But please, BKBs win games. Buy them, for the love of God.
What kind of animal are you?
And while this is only tangentially related to exceptions in Dota 2, my most played hero, Mars, his first spell is called Spear of Mars. And this spell is super picky with what it does or doesn't consider as terrain. He throws a spear trying to pin an enemy to terrain, trees, or buildings. And believe me, some of the things that this game considers as terrain is mind-boggling. I made a whole post about it on Reddit a few years ago. I'll link it down below in the video description if you want to check it out. It's completely nonsensical. Apparently, these things in your base don't count as walls. Neither does Earthshaker's fissure for some goddamn reason. Only specific parts in Roshan's pit also count as walls. These things don't. Well, this one does. It's just... Valve, please, can you make it a little more consistent for my boy Mars? Thank you. Dota is a mod of Warcraft 3. And no matter how many times Valve tries to port Dota 2 into a new game engine, the Warcraft 3 jank runs really deep. For example, attack classes. This is kind of like another category of damage types. For those who actually played Warcraft, not the Dota 1 mod, but actually played Warcraft 3 back in the day, they will know exactly what I'm talking about. The differences between hero damage, siege damage, piercing damage, and runty damage. Essentially, these are modifiers that they give the different creeps in the game in order to make sure that their damage kind of fits their role. For example, have you ever wondered why the Catapult's creep's health bar felt a little weird? Why it always seemed to deal more damage to buildings but dealt almost nothing to you? Ever wondered why the range creep seems to deal more damage to other creeps but deal almost nothing to you? Yep, all of these attack classes, that's a result of RTS damage types. Learning this specific mechanic isn't that important, not necessarily, but knowing about it does help at the very least, so now you'll know to prioritize killing the catapults when they're trying to siege your towers. Listen, up until this point, I've been talking about knowledge. However, that's only half of the battle, because the other is execution. You see, one of the reasons that I personally enjoy playing Dota is that twitch reflexes isn't necessarily that important in this game. In other words, I'm just coping because my old man hands doesn't have the reaction speed necessary to play Twitch shooter games. Oh, come on. Okay. I suck. But that's not to say that Twitch reflexes isn't rewarded in Dota, because there's a lot of mechanics in this game that do require split-second timing. Case in point, the entire mechanic about manta dodging. Manta Style is an item that when activated will summon a bunch of clones of your hero. But when those clones are being summoned, there is a split second where you are invulnerable, and in that split second, you can use that to dodge incoming spells and avoid damage completely. It's hard to do, and it's especially harder to do consistently, but it is a form of skill expression, which I honestly love. And being able to execute maneuvers in this game efficiently and with twitch reflexes isn't even necessary, for example. There are little things that you can do that just maximize your gameplay patterns. For example, combining an Ironwood branch and a Tango to maximize healing. The mid laner sharing his bottle charges with his teammates. Unlikely, but I've heard that apparently this does happen in the higher ranks. Allegedly, I wouldn't know. In Dota, there's a mechanic that allows you to stack jungle camps. Every 60 seconds, the jungle camps will respawn if nothing is in their respawn area. So what you can do is run up to a camp, auto-attack them to draw their aggression away, pull them away from their respawn area, and if you time it just right, a new camp will spawn on top of the old one. Do this repeatedly, and voila, you got a fat stack of a jungle camp that your carry is just waiting to eat up. However, certain heroes, with the use of their spells, can stack multiple camps at the same time. I can't fucking do it because number one, I'm bad at this video game, but I'm just gonna show some clips on screen of, I don't know, some competent players doing it. I don't fucking know. I've never seen this happen in my games. I fucking wish my supports would do this for me. Even as something as tiny, like my dick. I mean, tread switching. This relatively innocuous boot allows you to switch your primary attribute, either 10 strength, 10 agility, or 10 intelligence. And the efficient thing to do is right before you're about to cast the spell, switch them to intelligence and then switch back after the spell had been cast. This ensures that you have a bigger mana bar whenever the spell is cast, thus preserving the entirety of your mana bar a little better. Now, 10 intelligence might not result in a lot of mana conserved, that's because it isn't. Don't let these immortal players and pros tell you otherwise. This is Argonax the Valve Guy endorsing keeping treads on strength at all times. Do not argue with me in the comments, I will cry. There's also this thing that people used to do in the olden days of Dota. There's this boot called Tranquil Boots. It gives you a ton of healing and movement speed assuming you haven't taken any damage recently. So what junglers would do, back when that role still existed, was they would run up to a camp, drop their boots on the floor, kill the camp, and immediately afterwards pick up the boots and get that healing immediately. Except too often the enemies would wander into the jungle, kill them, and steal their boots. It's one of the funniest shit I've ever seen. In fact, when it comes to concepts of execution, and just one of my favorite concepts in this game as a whole, that easily would have to go to armlet toggling. Armlet of Mordigian, whatever, armlet. This thing is a mid-tier item that, when activated, gives you a ton of health, armor, and damage at the cost of constantly draining your health. However, this health drain is not lethal, and whenever your health bar is about to run out, you can toggle this thing off and on to constantly give you bonus health, like so. So if you're really good at armlet toggling, you can survive ganks like it's nobody's business. Your character will become very difficult to kill. It's honestly one of the biggest flex in this game to survive a gank via armlet toggling alone. In fact, I want to play a little game with you guys. Load up demo mode and see how many damage over time spells you can survive with just armlet toggling alone. This was all that I could manage, but I'd be curious if any of you can survive even more. And while we're on the topic of items, I might as well bring this up. Dota has found a way to make the act of buying items complicated in of itself. Many items require recipes. And sure, while that might not be complicated by itself, many items require so many components to craft, it actually becomes a family tree of items that lead to this item, which leads to that item, which upgrades to this item. So that's already fairly complicated. And then compounding that is the fact that certain powerful late-game items can only be purchasable, or at least they can only be finished via the secret shop. Yes, to all the non-Dota players and League players who are watching in the audience right now, there are two types of item shops in Dota. There's the one in your base, and then there's the one called the secret shop, which is located nearby the Radiant Tier 1 top tower and Dire Tier 1 bottom tower. And while I can't necessarily say the reason as to why this was implemented in the first place all the way back in the Warcraft 3 days, I can say that its implementation encourages more unique gameplay strategies and such. For example, if you know that the enemy carry is close to buying a late game item, you and your team can legitimately camp their secret shop in order to prevent them from finishing that item. The same thing goes with their couriers. If you ward this area up, and as long as you patrol it regularly and spot enemy couriers going to and from the secret shop, you can ensure that the enemy team can never get their late game items. Because there are two types of shops in Dota, this means that map control is even more important than other MOBAs, because finishing late game items requires you to leave the base. Is it needlessly complicating the act of buying items? Maybe. I must admit that I like the interactions that having two shops kinda force the enemy teams to interact in more ways than just map objectives. And here's a mechanic that I know newer Dota players have absolutely no idea about. Disassembling. Did you know that certain items can be disassembled? It is a mechanic that's becoming less and less relevant with each new patch. Flashbacks to Arcane Boots, Vanguard into Octarine Core. But it is still something you can do with certain items. For example, it's very common for agility carries to build Sage and Yasha, disassemble it, and turn that Yasha into a Manta style later on. Hell, this is news to me, but I didn't know that you could disassemble Vlads. So I don't know, take note of all these items right here that can be disassembled, and if there's some way that you can alter your build path with this new information, go right ahead. MOBAs as a genre is rather unique in the sense that while some MOBAs might have alternate game modes and alternate maps, almost always all MOBAs universally have one primary map. And knowing this map is the difference between winning and losing. Sure, the map might have some slight alterations between updates, but for the most part, maps mostly don't change, or at least not quickly. And you need to memorize this thing because MOBAs, and well, Dota more specifically, requires you to have a sort of sixth sense in order to know when a gank is coming your way. Because some people were upset that I didn't bully League of Legends in my previous video, I'm gonna do that now. This next story is gonna be very biased, but in my years of begrudgingly playing League of Legends with my friends because they refuse to play Dota with me, I have noticed that League of Legends players love to lose their goddamn mind whenever somebody fails to call missing in their lane, which always confused me because League of Legends map is very small. I actually think it's half the size of Dota's map. So given that the map is so small, shouldn't it be immediately obvious whenever somebody disappears for any given moment of time, even if they are from another lane? I don't know, I always just found it weird that people will blame their mid whenever they fail to call missing and they got killed, but in reality it was their own fault for pushing in too far. Anyway, I have come to realize that a lot of players, even those in Dota, don't look at the map nearly as often as they should. When I was playing with my League of Legends friends, I wanted to prove a point to them. When I was playing with them, I covered my minimap with a sticky note. I was playing the champion Shen, who has a global teleport shield. And even with the minimap covered and the enemy jungler popping the fuck off, I was still able to perfectly time my teleports in order to save teammates without the use of a minimap. That's also the reason why my most played champion in League of Legends is Swain, because his W, which is a basic ability, can reach targets halfway across the map. And since recalls in League of Legends is cancelled via damage, I just love waiting for the last second to cancel their recalls, even if they're in the fog of war. Because like clockwork, the enemy ADC will always hug their tower while recalling. Yes, I don't play Swain mid, I play him as an APC. I have been accused of map hacking multiple times, and my favorite counter whenever I get accused of such slander is open up all chat and I simply say, I'm a Dota player. I know what a minimap is. I'm still baffled that there are experienced MOBA players out there who don't look at the minimap. Like, how? That's like playing an FPS game without the crosshair. Like, what are you doing? Whenever I play Dota, and I'm sure a lot of other people do this too, I spend more time looking at my minimap than I do my screen. Sometimes to my detriment, that's probably why I miss last hits all the time, but at the very least, I can know immediately if somebody's coming. If I see an enemy's blip appear for a split second on the minimap, I'm running back to my tower. Now, I fully admit that my experience when I was playing League might be due to the fact that my friends in League of Legends are rather low rank, and whenever I was playing with them, I was also playing in the low ranks. But I'm no stranger to playing low ranks in Dota either. I have a lot of friends who are in the Herald, Guardian, and Crusader brackets, and even then, I think they watch their maps. They seem to know whenever an enemy is doing a smoke gank, I think, which is another thing, by the way. The fact that Dota has a very cheap item, Smoke of Deceit, which allows your entire team to go invisible and undetectable, is another aspect that demands you to have absolute awareness of the map at all times. If you notice that the enemy team is suspiciously gone for a long period of time and you are alone in the lane, congratulations, you're already dead.
Why is Medusa thieving? Do something. Oh my god.
But we got both carries here. Let's go. Both two carries. Double the farm.
Dude, they're so bad.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
I'm fine. I don't think I ever.
I'm dead. Dota games notoriously take a long time to finish, averaging out around 40 to 45 minutes. However, the game clock at the top of your screen is not just there to tell you how much of your life you've thrown away playing this goddamn game, but it also serves a purpose because there are map objectives all across the map that are timed precisely with this game clock. Creep waves spawn every 30 seconds, jungle camps spawn every minute, river runes every 2 minutes, lotus fruits every 3 minutes, bounty runes every 4 minutes, neutral items spawn at 5 minutes, wisdom shrines spawn at 7 minutes, aghanim shards at 15 minutes, tormentors are up at 20 minutes, Roshan can respawn anywhere from 8 to 11 minutes, so on and so forth. And you gotta keep track of all of these things at all times. Another thing that makes Dota needlessly obtuse is the fact that it hides a lot of these hidden mechanics. For example, cast range. All spells that can be cast have cast range. This makes sense. Some spells are short range, some spells are long range, some spells have area of effects, some of them are point and click, some of them have projectiles. Okay, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the fact that certain spells, specifically AoE cone spells or projectile spells, quite a few of them, their actual effective range is longer than their cast range. Take for example, Dragonite's Breathe Fire, Queen of Pain's Sonic Wave, Jakiro's Dual Breath. I'm showing on screen what the range of their spells is, but they can still hit targets well past that. Do you see what I'm talking about? This isn't a universal thing, by the way. This is something that you need to know about your hero. For some heroes, their cast range is true. This usually applies to point and click spells. However, there are some projectile abilities that are true indeed to their cast range. But then there's also some that aren't, and you need to know what those are. I will admit that it is cool to tag someone with Dragonite's Breathe Fire when they are further away than your initial cast range, kind of jump scaring them with your Breathe Fire spell. It's cool. And for a long time, because I used to play a lot of Dragonite, it was cool to kind of surprise people with this. But this is now just a mechanic that is such a legacy thing from Warcraft that I honestly think it needs to go. And if you want proof of this, look no further than Blink Dagger. Ever since its inception, Blink Dagger has had a blink range penalty if you overshot its blink range. Think of it kind of like the reverse of your cast range being longer. If you overshot your Blink Dagger, you would have actually blinked shorter than its actual cast range. And this was such an obtuse mechanic. I remember seeing a clip of a Dota 2 pro, I forget who it was, I'm going to show it on screen in just a second, but there was a Dota 2 pro who's been playing this game for a long time, and he didn't even know that this was a mechanic.
Honestly, I feel like my blink was shorter than... It is shorter. What? I'm just gonna test it now to see if I'm capping. Yeah, it is. What the fuck? Yo, what the fuck's going on? Why is it shorter than my... You guys see that? It's shorter if you click outside the indicator. Wait, what?
That's how obtuse some of this shit is. It's so hidden. It's so just not apparent that you can be a pro at Dota for years and not even realize that this was a thing. Do you think that Dota 2 pros read the Dota 2 wiki like it's a Bible? Actually, don't answer that. They probably do. But as I showed earlier in the video, there are some equations in this wiki. And do you think that Dota 2 pros understand this shit? Listen, man, we come to Dota for numbers, but we don't come here for math, okay? Do you think they know what any of this means? I'm willing to bet they don't, I don't, and if you're gonna tell me that you understand any of this stuff right here, I'm gonna call you a fucking liar. A few more things that I want to cover. Barriers of entry. All games have them. And unfortunately, Dota has a lot of them. It's not really a surprise that Dota, and more specifically the MOBA genre, doesn't get a ton of new players. It still does get a new players who vehemently want to learn these games. But to say that it has the same amount of hype as, say, something like Fortnite, where kids are just jumping at the chance to play that game, MOBAs don't really have the same appeal. And I think one of the absolute biggest barriers of entry, discounting all of the insane mechanics that the game asks you to memorize and such, the biggest barrier of entry, without a shadow of a doubt, is the point of view. Most people nowadays are used to first-person shooters or third-person shooters. Hell, even fighting games, their POV makes sense. However, top-down games, isometric games, is far from the norm. This is a hard pill to swallow, especially for my older gamers and those who watched my MOBA RTS video, but it really is true. Top-down games is just an inherent barrier of entry. Many people will swear off a game if that is the perspective of choice. It's kind of seen as somewhat archaic, something that older games used to do. So when you take that and you try to ask new players to play a game who is completely centered around this POV, and these new players have probably never played a top-down game in their lives, it's just tough for them to understand. Even tougher when you tell them that in order to move, you don't use your keyboard, you use your mouse via right-clicking. A top-down POV is just something that newer gamers are not used to. Just ask yourself this: when was the last time a top-down isometric game that uses right-click to move, when was it ever in the mainstream zeitgeist? The only one that comes to my mind is maybe Baldur's Gate 3, but you'll be also hard-pressed to find any younger gamers going out of their way to play that game as well. Another thing that I've noticed is a lot of Dota characters and their names and designs can cause a bit of confusion to people unfamiliar with them. Dota just seems to choose at random which hero gets called by their title and which hero gets called by their name, where at the very least, League of Legends calls everybody by their name and they still have their title in their lore page or bio or whatever. I used to play Dota 1 and I was fascinated by the fact that you could have 5 knights on the team: Rogue Knight, Dragon Knight, Omni Knight, Chaos Knight, and Holy Knight. But unfortunately, 2 of these guys prefer to go by their name instead of their title, Chen and Sven. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that Chen's title was Holy Knight, did you? And then there's just the scaling of it too. Like, for example, Troll Warlord is a very powerful character in-game. However, his lore literally states that he lives in his mom's basement and he beat up his friends when they made fun of him. And yet, this guy can beat literal gods in 1v1 fights. Roshan, who is the strongest unit in the game and one of the strongest units in the lore, he folds to Ursa, who is canonically just a mama's boy, or should I say, mama's bear. Viper is a literal flying snake, and despite the fact that he makes such a big deal about him flying and such, he is one of the slowest characters in the game. And this one isn't really related to anything, but try to explain to a new player why exactly when you see these 3 little dwarves on the enemy team. I hope you don't have any plans for the rest of the night, because my god, that enemy base is gonna become a fortress now. One might call it a dwarf fortress, get it? And one more character's name that I want to discuss that isn't necessarily confusing, but kinda cool and subversive in a way. Juggernaut. The word Juggernaut means something that is unstoppable, but when you think of the word Juggernaut, you usually think big guy, like Marvel's Juggernaut. You usually think tanks, bruisers. So I find it rather cool that Dota's Juggernaut is an agile samurai, and despite the fact that he isn't tanky whatsoever, he still fits his title and name that he is indeed unstoppable thanks to his spin and Omnislash. It's just cool that Dota does that.
Yeah, that Juggernaut.
So I've already discussed a broad topic of things that really makes Dota such a overwhelming experience. However, I must state that Dota has made some attempts to streamline and, I guess, simplify certain things. For example, damage types. Before, there was other things like universal damage, composite damage, but Dota was able to focus its scope and make it that there's only 3 damage types: physical, magical, and pure damage. Another thing that's more of a quality of life feature, but still helpful nonetheless, was that they gave everybody their own dedicated courier. Back in the day, all 5 players on your team had to share 1 donkey, and the donkey was not free. You had to buy it, and you had to upgrade it into a flying courier as well. A lot of newer Dota players have no idea the pain of trying to request for a courier when your mid laner is just hogging the damn thing to get his bottle recharges.
Dire's courier has been killed. Dire's courier has been killed. Dire's courier has been killed. Dire's courier has been killed.
Another thing is that they added dedicated slots for your TP scrolls. They allowed wards to share 1 slot. They also added the backpack, which allows you to have more items. So the days of your tranquil boots being stolen in the jungle are no more. But don't you worry, your team will still report you for jungling in the year 2025. I'm sure that there's other things that Dota has probably done to help streamline the experience. I'm purely talking about gameplay, right? I'm not talking about like improvements to the UI and the game client, because like I said in my previous video, Dota's UI and client is probably one of the best in the gaming world. So I'm just going to refer it to you guys if there was indeed any other streamlining that Dota has done that I'm just kind of forgetting right now. Now, okay, for my last topic that I want to talk about, and this one is very important to me because this is actually the reason that I wanted to make this video. Easily the most overwhelming and just esoteric mechanic in all of Dota, and the mechanic that I dread having to teach new players whenever they try this game, is trying to explain to them exactly how creep and tower aggro works. Because holy shit, the simple act of knowing how your NPC creeps and towers operate is like astrology. There is no rhyme or reason. I understand how it works, but trying to explain it to a new player is fucking impossible. So I'm going to try my best to do so now. So both towers and creeps are NPCs. You cannot directly control them, however they are allied with you. Creeps will run down the lanes, whereas towers act as defensive structures along the lanes. Usually, creeps end up fighting other creeps. However, they will switch their aggression if an ally hero is under attack. Both will keep attacking until the target dies or leaves their range or vision. That makes sense, right? Yeah, because, I mean, most MOBAs do this. Pretty sure Deadlock and League of Legends, their versions of creeps and towers operate under this philosophy as well. However, this is where the jank begins. Because sure, while they do switch targets if their ally hero is attacked, however, they only count right clicks as attacks. Yes, your right mouse button issuing a command via right clicking signals to them that you are a threat that needs to be dealt with ASAP. Hell, your attack might have not even come out yet. You can cancel your auto attack and the creeps and towers will still come for you. They don't care about range either. You can right click an enemy on the other side of the map and the creeps and towers will still switch their target to you. So that is already kind of a weird rule, but I guess in some roundabout way it still kind of makes sense because you're still damaging the enemy hero even though you didn't throw out an attack. It's like the NPCs can read your mind, essentially. However, it must also be stated that these guys don't care about spell damage. You know why? Because spells don't count as right clicks. They don't draw their aggression. I am not kidding. Their ally hero might be melting because Zeus is casting lightning bolts, shredding their health bar. The creeps sleep. However, if you do a single shitty auto attack that deals next to no damage, real shit. In fact, certain heroes have what is called attack modifiers that acts as spells. Take Drow Ranger, for example. Her Q is called Frost Arrows. When you right-click the spell and this little sparkly icon comes up, all of your basic attacks will be augmented with Frost Arrows, costing a little bit of mana per attack, but all of your attacks will be enhanced. This will draw aggression, naturally, because you are just right-clicking them after all. However, if you disable the autocast and manually cast Frost Arrows as if it's a spell, she will launch a single instance of Frost Arrows at the enemy hero. Doing it this way will not draw their aggression. Do you want to know why? Because manually casting an attack modifying spell does not use the right-click button on your mouse. This is not a joke, man. And as the extra cherry on top, if both creeps and towers are currently targeting you, you can have their aggression reset via ordering your hero to attack a friendly creep. Because for some reason, issuing an attack command on an ally creep, it has to be a creep by the way, it will not work on a hero. You basically press A and then you click your own creep with the intention to deny it. The creep might not even be in deny range. All that matters is that you signaled an attack command on your own creep. And by doing this, it will make the enemy tower or creep forget your transgression and switch to another target, assuming there is another target for them to switch to. And by the way, that ally creep that you tell your hero to attack command, they can also be on the other side of the map. In other words, the jank-ass NPC AI in this game is aggravated and placated purely via right clicks. You cannot make this shit up. Why is this the case? I'll tell you why. It's because some Blizzard developer 20 years ago was too distracted stealing breast milk to code this shit properly. Why is everything your fault, man?
Every good hot dog needs to be peeled.
You got all that? I hope that explanation makes sense, because even if it doesn't matter. Just I'm showing how the tower mechanics work on screen right now. Like I cannot even begin to try to explain this shit, man. It's oh my god. It takes you a long time to fully grasp how this jank works, and I don't know why. Ice Frog and Valve has done a great job of modernizing Dota from its days as a mod, but this fucking thing has stayed. This fucking jank-ass mechanic has remained the same for 20 years. So with everything that I've talked about today, I think you'll agree with me that Dota is a very overwhelming game. but in a way that is what makes it so satisfying to play. Even to this day, I stumble across people who have been playing this game just as long as I have, if not longer, and there are still certain mechanics that they either just forget or just didn't know about.
I might get out.
They will let him be. He's going to be able to blink, or is he? He's not going to be able to blink. He's not going to be able to blink.
I didn't expect the first to proc actually. The blink, war? Yeah, the blink. Oh, we learned something.
I still see people trying to counter Broodmother's invisibility even though she doesn't have it anymore. Or hell, even stuff that's recent. I did not realize that the thing that disables passives on Viper is not his W anymore, it's his ult. They moved it. I don't even remember when they did that. And I know for a fact that I have helped some of you guys, because even though all of the videos that I have published about Dota 2, again, none of these are meant to be guides. These are meant to be video essays. And even then, I still receive a lot of comments saying that they learned something new about the game. When I told people that you have the ability to share announcers and HUD skins, many longtime players did not know that. When I told them that you can disable help or that you can share unit control with your allies, they didn't know that either. This just goes to show that even though I play Dota a lot, I still forget things and I can still learn things. The fact that you invest so much time playing this game, and then getting your shit kicked in. But then the moment that you learn just enough, the moment that you as a player become competent enough to be able to outplay and outwit your opponent, that is a feeling that almost no other game can really capture. And that is why, despite how overwhelming this game is, I will never get tired of learning something new, or hell, even teaching new players. I wouldn't call myself good by any means, I'm just a lowly legend player, but I have taught quite a few new players into Dota 2. I wouldn't call myself a full-on coach. Think of me more like a very active tour guide. Ask me questions and I will give you an answer. So with all this overwhelming stuff that I've thrown your way today, I just want to end this video by showing you one more clip. It's an old Dota what the fuck clip that I saw many years ago. And while Dota is a game with so much depth that it rivals something like the Challenger Deep, there are times when this game is so beautifully simple, and for that I just want to show two carries, both of whom have projectile stuns as their first ability, stumbling across one another in a game, and I'll let it do the rest.
Feel my blade. Yes, more. Take a knee, peasant. Here comes the home.
Beautiful, wouldn't you agree? Anyway, what do you think, Internet Wanderer? Are you overwhelmed by Dota? If so, join my Discord, please. I take a lot of actual joy easing people into Dota. I can't really, like I said earlier, I'm not a coach, but I am more than happy to walk you through the initial experience and give you tips whenever is needed. So join my Discord if you are interested in learning a little bit about Dota. And I do hope that you were able to learn something in this video. Thanks for watching, Internet Wanderer. Do the YouTube things.